your own doesn't have to mean being lonely. Let's explore how we can enjoy our own company. Hello and welcome back to Voice After 50, the space where we talk about growth, curiosity and carving out joy. I'm your host Beverley, and today we're diving into something that often brings up both feelings of freedom and fear. Doing things on your own, like going to the coffee shop, the museum, the cinema, the theatre, taking that solo trip, or even just booking that table for one at a restaurant. It sounds so simple, right? For many of us, especially women who've spent much of their life tending or being linked to others, partners, kids, aging parents, friends, it can feel strange, even intimidating to do things solo. So let's talk about it and about what happens when we have to stop waiting for someone to come with us and decide to go anyway. I remember the first time I sat alone in a coffee shop. Not rushed, not killing time between errands, but intentionally. I ordered an Americano, found a little table by the window which had just enough sun shining through, and as soon as I sat down with my coffee, I immediately took out my phone, because that's what we do, isn't it? We reach for distraction, something to make us look busy, occupied, or seemingly less awkward, like we're not really on our own. I mean, heaven forbid someone might think we're lonely or have no friends. Oh, poor thing. But then I did something different. I put the phone down. I looked around, sipped my coffee slowly, took my time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it felt a bit uncomfortable to begin with. I looked around, focused on the cakes on the display, looked out of the window, stared at the floor, mentally counted the napkins on my table. But you know what happened after all of that? My attempts to distract myself from being there on my own? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Zip. The world didn't stop spinning. No one clutched their pearls in horror. No looks of pity. No one thought I was sad or weird or lacking. Nothing. I wasn't even on anyone's radar. And it was brilliant. In fact, I felt this tiny jolt of power and liberation, like I had unlocked a door to something I didn't even know I'd locked myself out of. Okay, so why is it hard to do things alone? Well, I think part of it is how we've been socialised. We're taught that shared experiences are the most valuable. Dinners with partners, vacations with friends, always being with someone. And of course, connections with others matters on a deeper level. We need each other. After all, we're fundamentally social beings. But somewhere along the way, we have equated solitude with emptiness or with something being wrong or problematic. Especially for women, there's this unspoken, assumptive narrative that if you're alone, you must be either lonely or lacking in some way. In a Guardian piece referencing solitude, the science of power of being alone, psychologist Thuy V. Huynh highlights how society routinely links solitude with loneliness, treating being alone as undesirable or pitiable rather than potentially peaceful or autonomous. And because of this, people may fear judgment, feel awkward, or worry what others think, especially around leisure or fun activities done solo. This misunderstanding reflects and reinforces a broader cultural stigma, as it's just not true. Solitude is not a problem to solve. When framed positively, solo activities can be liberating, creative, and deeply satisfying. It can be a gift, one that allows us to meet ourselves again, recharge and regroup on an individual level. Me, myself, and I moments. Let me be direct here. I honestly believe that doing things alone doesn't have to be what you do when no one else is available. It doesn't have to be your plan B. It can be your first choice, your intended, deliberate experience. There's a quiet magic in wandering around a bookstore with no one waiting on you, or sitting through a movie and not needing to ask, "Did you like it?" Because all that matters is that you did, or didn't. There's freedom in going to a concert and dancing without self-consciousness. You know the phrase, dancing like no one is looking. Freedom in taking yourself to dinner and ordering exactly what you want, no compromises. There's liberation in travelling solo, setting your own schedule, waking up when you want, skipping the museum or visiting it twice, spending the whole day reading by the sea if you feel like it. Doing things on your own can teach you what you actually enjoy, not what you've just learned to go along with. Now, I do need to stress that there is a difference between loneliness and aloneness. Let's be honest here, sometimes doing things solo can bring up grief or longing, and that's real, especially if you've lost a partner or if your kids are grown up and left home or if friendships have changed and thinned with time. But the antidote to loneliness isn't always company. Sometimes it's about being present in your own space and learning to enjoy your own companionship, not as a substitute, but as a soul-nourishing experience in its own right. There's a deep difference between being alone and being lonely, and cultivating the former can actually protect you from the latter. So, being alone means spending time by yourself, physically separate from others. This can be a peaceful and even enjoyable experience. It's a state of solitude and it's not necessarily negative. Being lonely, on the other hand, can be a painful feeling of disconnection. You can feel lonely even when surrounded by people. It's not about whether you're alone, it's about whether you feel emotionally connected to others. But how can being alone protect you from loneliness, I hear you ask? Well, here's some of the ideas I've come across whilst looking into this. Aloneness builds emotional resilience. A study published in the Journal of Aging Studies found that older adults who spent regular time alone by choice reported increased emotional stability and reduced anxiety. Being with yourself on purpose helps build inner strength. Solitude brings clarity. Without the noise of others, their needs, their expectations, you can reconnect with what you value. You might rediscover a forgotten hobby or realise you actually prefer silence to small talk. These insights deepen your ability to show up authentically when you do connect with others. Time alone helps you recharge. After decades of caregiving or managing responsibilities, solitude can feel like coming up for air. Someone I met recently told me she started scheduling one solo day a month. No plans, no appointments, just her. She said it changed her life. Remember, learning to enjoy and use solitude well helps you build inner strength, improves your ability to connect meaningfully with others, and protects against the painful kind of loneliness that comes from feeling disconnected. If doing things alone feels daunting, that's okay. You don't have to jump straight into a solo vacation to Bali. Start small. Try going to a midweek matinee at the cinema or theatre by yourself. Bonus points if it's a film or something that nobody else wants to see. Take a book to a quiet cafe. Walk in nature and leave your phone on silent. Go to a local museum or gallery and wander about for an hour. No itinerary, no agenda. The first few times may feel awkward. In fact, I can confirm from personal experience that it definitely will feel awkward. But like any muscle, confidence in your own company gets stronger the more you use it. And one day you might find yourself smiling across the table at your own reflection and thinking, hey, you're pretty good company. I remember the first time I went to the theatre alone in the West End, queuing up by myself, finding my seat on my own. It felt awkward, and I have to be honest, a little uncomfortable. But the moment the curtain rose on Mamma Mia, all that melted away. The music, the colour, the sparkle of the performance swept not just me, but the entire audience into the same current of joy. We nodded in time, clapped together, and every now and then caught each other's eyes with huge, knowing smiles. In that shared wave of delight, the fact that I was there on my own didn't matter at all. Ever since then, if there is something at the theatre I want to see, I just book my ticket and go. Me, myself, and I. And here are a few stories from women in their 50s and 60s and beyond. Women like you and I who embrace solitude in different ways. One woman, recently retired, booked herself a solo trip to Cornwall. She'd always dreamed of walking the coastal paths and painting the sea. It was the first time in decades she felt completely herself. Another grandmother of 5 started taking herself out to Sunday brunch once a month. Just her journal, and a mimosa. It's now become her most treasured ritual. Another woman took herself on a weekend writing retreat, just her and a cabin and a pile of books. None of these women said it was easy, but they all said it was worth it. So here's my gentle invitation to you. Choose one thing to do solo this week or next week, just one. It doesn't have to be bold or dramatic. It just has to be your thing that you want to do. Maybe it's a solo drive to the coast, or finally sitting in that restaurant you've walked past. Maybe it's making a pot of tea, putting on your favourite music, and simply being with yourself for an hour and a half. Let it be small. Let it be sacred. And by sacred, I mean you set time apart for yourself so it becomes more than a break. It becomes a deliberate moment when you honour your own needs without distraction. And as you do it, notice how it feels to not explain, to not negotiate, to not compromise. Notice how it feels to give yourself the attention you know you so freely give to others. And remember, being alone isn't something to endure, it's something to explore. There is something so liberating about realising you don't need anyone else to validate your presence in the world. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way in terms of the anyone else, but what I mean is that you can choose your own company and find it not only enough, but delightful. So whether you're sitting in a restaurant with a glass of wine, strolling through a gallery, or boarding a plane with a bag and a dream, know this: you are not alone in your aloneness. And you are more than capable of creating a beautiful life, moment by moment, choice by choice. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, pass it on to somebody who might need the reminder that their own company is more than enough. Until next time, keep blooming, solo or not. Talk soon.